Okay. Okay, Brian, thank you very much for joining us. I know you're extremely busy and but you are doing some extremely good work, and I would like to know a little bit more about that. That's why I've invited you here, and I know a larger audience, part of the international education community, will also be interested in what you have to say. So, for those of you out there, this format is very simple. I'm going to ask Brian three questions. He'll answer them, of course, and then he'll have the forum to talk about anything else he wants to about the project that he is working on, and then we will leave the final 10 to 15 minutes or so for questions. And this recording will be available for others who were not able to make it. Okay. Again, Brian, thank you for joining us. And so let's get started with Global Ed. How did that idea come about? How did you create it?
Yeah, I thank you, Tom. Thanks so much for inviting me. It's great to be here, and really happy to have a dialogue and conversation, I hope. I've been in the field for a long time, 25 plus years. I started out as going to a NAFSA regional conference. I'm in the New England region, so region XI, and so I had a great mentor, and Sue Atkins, and she's kind of in an adjacent field, and it took a long time to break into the field, right? It took a long time to figure out who's who and how you break in, and global ed I think started because of like my love for the field and my frustration. So I have a deep love for this field. I love NAFSA. I love the different professional organizations that are out there. But of course, every professional organization comes with pros and cons. I think working in NAFSA, and I was a member leader, I was part of the Teaching, Learning, and Scholarship National Leadership Team. And I think I was getting growingly frustrated by some of the gatekeeping. So what I mean by that is like NAFSA produces some amazing resources, but it's often kind of funneled through the NAFSA kind of structures and bureaucracies. And there's like when I was working in as a member leader, there was very detailed like work plans that you were part of, right? And you couldn't really like innovate. You couldn't build off of prior knowledge that well. And so I felt like we were having all these knowledge gaps. We were reinventing the wheel a lot. Weren't really opening lines of communication, sharing resources collectively, building expertise amongst, a variety of very talented people. It was felt very top down to me. And again, this is like with the caveat that I love working with NAFSA staff. Like individually, the people are extremely nice, but like any organization, it has a certain kind of like culture. So Global Ed was founded during kind of the pandemic moment of like just being experimental. The mission is really to democratize the field. And we do that in a variety of different ways. We offer online courses for international educators at a fairly low cost. They're around $100 to $300 per course. Hopefully they're affordable. We also can definitely offer like scholarships and discounts to just get people in. So we wanted to make these kind of affordable opportunities that were really high quality, and really kind of also thinking beyond just the tasks and the skills. So thinking beyond just your current job, but a more liberal arts approach, perhaps a more like broader career development approach. And I can talk about that more so that you're not just thinking about here's my role as a study abroad advisor, here's my role as an international student advisor, or wherever it may be, because your job is always going to change and evolve. So some of the other courses and professional development opportunities that I was seeing were a little bit more like task oriented, like how do you get this particular thing done, visas or advising. And I really wanted to have a more kind of broader approach while also being kind of practical. So a lot of our courses kind of mix a little bit of the philosophical, the leadership, the foundations, but also sort of the practical pieces. So the online courses are a big part of that democratization, hopefully. We also do a lot of free resource development for the field. So we have a weekly newsletter with news that's collated, and it has like links to current research, jobs, and news items. And then we have a lot on the website itself that is actually resource driven. And then it's also a sort of emerging software platform. So we're also trying to build a platform that helps link people collaboratively to build resources together, to share knowledge. And we have a variety of other programs. I won't go through all the different programs here because you get a little bored. But a variety of but the mission really is to democratize the field. And so it's been about 3 years now. It's been a great sort of journey, and I really enjoy it.
And thanks, Brian. That word democratize really resounds with me. It resonates with me because I think it's synonymous with accessibility. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of people feel like they don't have the access to it. I think with NAFSA, and I agree with you, it's a wonderful resource. They're incredible. I think a lot of people cannot afford attending the annual conference. So I think what Global Ed does, they fulfill a key role here in terms of just acting as a conduit
Mhm.
between the community and to NAFs and all these resources. I think it's absolutely phenomenal and extremely timely. So I tip my hat to you because that really is it's vital. I mean, we do need resources. Um, let's go to the next question. This is the one that really excites me is the foundations for international education. So again, what's the thinking behind that course?
Yeah, that was our first course that we launched now, I think 2 years ago. And one of the great things about, just building your own organization, your own company is you don't really have a boss. You just be like, hey, I want to do something that's cool and innovative. So I really felt like an online course format. I wanted to do that, but I also I'm an educator by background. So pedagogically, like I know kind of what works. And I was always a little skeptical of the online courses. So one of the things that I think distinguishes it is it's a facilitated course. So although it's sort of on demand and you can join at any time, and there's not like a set start and end date. So you can just join it and do it at any time. But the instructors, in this case for foundations, I'm the instructor. But other cases you would have a different instructor, but you're always being facilitated along the way. So you're doing assignments, you're doing case studies. It's not just watching videos or just doing readings. Like you get actual feedback. So that was really important to me because I've done a lot of online courses where it's just a lot of like watching a video, and they're great. They have their own place. But I really wanted to have like assignment feedback and guidance and all those things that make courses great. So the approach to foundations was really my goal there was I felt like a lot of master's programs, a lot of trainings in the field, I didn't think were properly, this is where I get a little like on my high horse. I didn't think they were properly teaching the foundational theories of the field. Of course, if you do a program like the SIT master's program or Leslie or some of those master's programs are, great and excellent. But a lot of people come from the field from other kinds of backgrounds. They come from higher ed, they come from student development, they come from, maybe career development or other kinds of backgrounds, and not really getting some of the foundational theories. So, for example, contact theory, which was developed in the 1950s by Gordon Allport, is one of the foundational theories of our field. You really can't understand why study abroad was really advanced and created without understanding the evolution of contact theory. So that's just one example where, being able to, pragmatically say that in job interviews and say, hey, I understand some of these foundational theories. I've taken some of this knowledge, is really, really helpful when you're working with students, when you're working with faculty and trying to explain what it is that you do, beyond getting students on planes, right? Or, welcoming students in. So foundations, it's like I said, it's trying to be both applied. So there's case studies, there's really like working through problems. So, but it's also, really teaching like how did the field evolve? How did the historical evolution go? What are the current sort of like debates and key topics in the field? What's the current research in the field? What's the research tradition? So it tries to kind of like from a broad lens hit all of those areas. And I'll go through it a little bit more detailed in a minute as well.
No, that sounds great. I think you may agree that a large part of the field of international education is driven by a certain mythology. And I think the word I just learned recently was mythopoeic. And then people like all of us here, we're international educators, we're mythopathic because we interpret that mythology in different ways. So I really like what you're doing, Brian. Is not that you're interpreting a myth, is you're actually taking the essence or the ethos of international education and make it much more practical and pragmatic.
Yeah.
Which I think as a field we really are struggling with that, because it's, as you say, everyone's, hey, we want to make the world better by sending students abroad. Okay, great, but certainly international education is much more robust, much more complex than that. So
Sure.
I think what you're doing is essential. It's, it's about these foundations. I think and just these conversations, these interactions, with theory and the reality, it's absolutely essential. So I may actually have to take this course too. So we'll
We welcome you to take it.
we'll see. Okay, final question, and then I'll turn over to you, Brian. Um, how can this course help, let's say, unemployed international educator? What can it do for them?
Well, I think I was just saying, I mean, it's certainly something that you could put on your resume. And I think the primary goal would be, if you're unemployed or you're looking for work or you're looking to break in, I think being able to say that you're doing work on the side, that you're improving your knowledge, that you're upping your skills is always really helpful, and be able to talk about sort of the foundational theories, the foundational concepts, in a very holistic way can set you apart as a candidate. Certainly, when I would look at candidates, where if I'm hiring, I'm going to look at people who go the extra step, go the extra mile, right? And have knowledge beyond their particular functional area. Because then, as an employer, that's going to put you apart because everyone, there's lots of people with great skills, right? But someone who you could also shift to another role or promote because they have additional knowledge or a broader range of skills, that's going to be that extra asterisk and step that's going to sort of set you apart, I think. So, so I think that's the benefit. When we were creating the course, though, I would say there was not always like that kind of pragmatic, practical benefit. We try to kind of provide that foundation to really anyone. I mean, a great story would be like a faculty member who sometimes faculty get to a position where they suddenly become the senior international officer, but they're from music or they're from history or something that is not in directly international education. So we also positioned it so that those individuals could also be part of the conversation. So we're not creating gaps, and we're trying to break down those silos so people are in conversation with each other, because that music professor who's suddenly the director needs to know, what someone who's an administrative assistant is also doing in the field. So we want that conversation to happen. So I think it's been helpful. I think a lot of people we've had overall in 2 years, we've had, I think, around 50 people take the course, sometimes in cohorts. So sometimes an office will do it for their whole staff. And they'll kind of go through the course together so that they can kind of learn together. So we've had a mixture. Sometimes it's people who are at the beginning of their career. Sometimes it's those who are transitioning from another adjacent field. And then again, sometimes offices do it sort of as part of a professional development opportunity.
Oh, very good. There are a lot of opportunities there. I think, I just learned this expression recently as well. It's called an AQ. It's an adversity quotient.
Hmm.
And I think that's where your course fits right in, because it's helping people who are unemployed really show their resiliency and their adaptability to a hard situation by expanding their knowledge by taking your course. So again, I applaud you for that. Okay, Brian, I'm going to turn it over to you now to take the discussion, and then I'll only chip in when we want to have some questions and answers. So it's all yours.
Okay, great. Could I share my screen? Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah. No problem.
Okay.
Let's see. I think, yeah. Go ahead if you can. Let's see if there's any issues. Let's see.
Okay.
I think.
And I also would like to, I'll put this in the chat. So this is linked to all of our courses. So this is our learning development page. So I also want to like give a little plug for other courses as well. So Foundations is one of the courses, but we also have courses on quantitative data analysis as well, which I think is really important, and some other courses. So I just wanted to make sure I give you the kind of the the full range of the courses. So yeah, let me try to share here. And I'll just walk you through, hopefully everyone can see that okay. And I'll walk you through, some of the details about the course, some of the nitty-gritty details, because we kind of talked in broad brush about it. So the course again, it explores the foundations, the theories, the trends in international education. It's 5 modules. Each module takes about 2 to 3 hours to complete. I would say that's a rough guide. I mean, everyone, learns at their own pace, and everyone has a different method for going through the material. You could easily sort of sit down and knock out a couple modules in one day. But a lot of people, it's interesting, kind of the psychology of this. A lot of people tend to stop and start a lot, like, go through a period where they have some time and they'll get a module done and then a month later do another one. So there's a variety of ways that you can kind of tackle it. We have a variety of, I haven't mentioned this yet, but we have a variety, it's not just me teaching the course, we have a variety of experts that we have who are sort of guest lecturers, so to speak, who have done recorded material. So, for example, we have Fiona Hunter, who's a big name in the field. She's kind of internationalization expert on the evolution of the concept of internationalization. It's evolved over time, and so she has a guest lecturer and some other guest lecturers as well. We have some case studies and practical learning opportunities where you're going to kind of look at a case and figure out, like, what would I do in this situation, right? If I was study abroad advisor or international student advisor, wherever it may be. And again, there's graded assignments. So there's actually submissions that you're making. And we don't, have a letter grade system. We have more of a point grade system, and you have to get a certain amount of points to get have the course completed. It's not meant to be, again, this is democratization, so it's not meant to be punitive in any way. It's really just to, kind of improve your knowledge. And then, like I said, we're very open for feedback. If you need advice along the way, we're very open to having separate conversations outside of the course just to work on career development as well. The course container is just a container, and then you can kind of make it what you want to. So I'm just going to go through the modules, just give a kind of an overview of each module. So we start with module 1, which is really a crash course in the kind of history of the field, key definitions, terminologies that shape the discourse of the field, evolution of the programs and initiatives over time. It's really important I think, to know the history of the field and to be able to kind of narrate that history very quickly. And the history is not 10 years. It's 50 years, it's 100 years. You could go back to like ancient times and the Greeks and the Romans, of course, but we kind of start the history roughly the early 20th century with the founding of the Institute of International Education, the founding of NAFSA, World War I, World War II programs. That's really when kind of our modern conception of the field started. This kind of significance of the field, and then real world examples and contextual applications to different settings. So it's kind of your kind of, crash introduction to the field if you were kind of coming at it, with no background in it. And then module 2, we go deeper into kind of historical overview, talk about some key organizations, their impacts on global education, evolution of policy developments and frameworks that guide our fields, changing drivers of internationalization and education systems worldwide. This is where Fiona Hunter has this lecture on the evolution of the field, the evolution of internationalization as a concept. This was really kind of, again, really important to me because I think internationalization is a term that's just kind of thrown around. And certainly I had very little conception of what it meant, but there's a whole, you could have a whole course just on the concept of internationalization. And it's really important as you're thinking about your career development to be in that conversation because it's a very rich and deep conversation. We then go through theoretical ideas and concepts and teach some of the key frameworks. Certainly, Jane Knight's conceptual framework of internationalization is one that probably everyone in the field should have knowledge of. Hans de Wit's kind of dimensions of internationalization, what comprehensive internationalization means versus other models of internationalization. We all go through global citizenship. We talk about intercultural competence quite a bit and the evolution of intercultural competence. The intercultural praxis model, which is like a kind of emerging big model in the field. Again, things like contact theory, so that you can have a lexicon, kind of a dictionary to really draw from as you're having conversations. And you're able to educate others, right? You're able to educate your teammates, your office mates. These are the foundations of the field, and have that kind of common framework. We then go through the field, kind of positioning the field vis-a-vis higher education as a whole. This is really important to me too, because the field, we like to kind of think of ourselves a little bit maybe in a bubble sometimes, but we are part of often a very larger higher education landscape. If you're based in a higher education, university or campus, you're part of a much larger puzzle. So we talk about some of the just global trends affecting higher education as a whole, new modalities, new trends like virtual exchange, branch campuses, global campuses, what's sometimes called cross-border higher education. And certainly equity and diversity are a big running theme throughout the course. I think hopefully, Tom, you agree, like the field has really moved, in recent years to really kind of considering equity and diversity, not only access for students, but also the knowledge that we're producing, the knowledge kind of frameworks, and trying to be really thoughtful about that as well. Module 5 goes through the research and other major trends in the field. So we have a whole lecture on research, understanding the research, trying to not, get overwhelmed by it. So we kind of just try to hit those major points. Things like major research findings in the field from major research studies, like the Georgetown Consortium study, and other kinds of big studies that looked at the effects of international education on students. We can't hit every one, and there's a lot of nuances here, but try to give you kind of like talking points that you can have conversations with, again, office mates or your director with, or whoever it may be about, here are the key policy, here are the key research pieces in the field, and how they affect students. And then module 6, we wrap up with reflection. So there is a final module. I said 5 modules, and then there's a final module that's just all about kind of reflection and praxis. So looking kind of that theory to praxis connection, you do a final sort of self-assessment, self-reflection on your knowledge gained. I would say that every lesson, so each module has lessons within it. And within those lessons, there are also knowledge checks. So each lesson has a knowledge check to make sure you're kind of understanding the concepts. Those are not graded. Those are just like for you and for me as the instructor to sort of see if you're kind of grasping the concepts. So again, just kind of looking over the different features in the course format. There's video content. There's knowledge checks, guest lectures, case studies. We do have a discussion board too. To be honest, I wouldn't say that's widely used because I think people are doing the course at different times. So some of the assignments incorporate some introductions and discussions, but I'd love to get that going a little bit more. And again, it's a flexible structure. It's really self-paced, so you can kind of match it to your professional schedule and your needs, and again, kind of use it as a container to build off of. And I'm happy to meet with folks individually and just give additional guidance along the way. So yeah, so I'll stop sharing now, and happy to answer any questions or just have a little bit more of a dialogue.
Well, thank you, Bryan. Does anyone have any questions? We'll open this up. Mara, Naomi, and I see another one. 14013391123. So, if you have any questions, the table's open. The floor's open. Amara, do you have a question? Okay, sorry.
I just want to say this is really exciting. I am been looking on the website and have not heard about this, and it's just really, really great to see just the course that you offer. And felt I resonated deeply with the idea of people going into the field and just doing the logistics all day, practicalities, and really not going back to the idea of the kind of theoretical, some of the frameworks of the field. So looking forward to looking into that. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more about, you said that you also were kind of trying to connect people and networking and things like that. Is that through the course, or can you talk more about that?
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, so we have a platform right now that we launched in last fall. So if you sign up for an account on the Global Ed site, which you kind of need to do to take a course, right? You're automatically kind of put into the platform. It's at this point, kind of what you'll see there is very much a beta version. So kind of a little bare bones. Like we have around, I think now 80 users in the platform. So we're trying to establish kind of a user base. And you can message folks, you can kind of connect with them, network, I guess. But what we're hoping to do this fall is launch a new kind of updated version. So if you get into the site now, that's great. You'll automatically kind of be converted to the new platform once it comes out this fall. But then we're hoping to get a lot more sign up. So the new version will have some AI components that I'm kind of excited about. Nothing crazy, not trying to replace the human interaction, but things like there'll be automatic prompts for things like, you know, creating an outline of a strategic plan or looking at research in the field. You can kind of prompt that and it can automatically feed you that stuff. So there's some cool AI things that I'm excited about. And then there's resource sharing, which has been a long vision of global ed. And I've never really, like, it took a while to figure out sort of how to do it. But I've always had this vision for like sort of this Etsy like marketplace where people could just upload resources and download resources. And it's really not any more complicated than that. So that will be a new feature of resource sharing where you can upload resources and download resources. And the key thing is just kind of creating categories and filtering and searches so that you can find what you're looking for. And obviously having, some checks and balances to make sure, people are uploading like quality resources and, things like that. So the resource sharing, and then there'll be a forum as well for questions and topics. So we'll have a sort of topic feed, almost like a social kind of feed where you can kind of share and collaborate. So those are some of the features. The software, I should say, the software platform is also meant to manage university partnerships. So partnership management, partnership connections for universities to manage those partnerships and contracts is a key need in the field. I think a lot of offices don't do that well, don't have a software solution. Some of the ones that are available are very, very expensive and very elaborate, and it takes like a year to onboard. So there'll be some pieces of that I think individuals could do as well if they wanted to form, say, like a practice community, or they wanted to sort of form collaborations that may also kind of be part of it as well. So anyway, long-winded answer, but that's kind of where it's going, is trying to digitally connect folks.
Well, that's a great question, Meryl. Thank you. And that's a great answer too, Bryan. I think Naomi said she didn't have any questions. I don't know if anyone else does, but I have one. And it's more really, actually, it could be for anyone, not just you, Bryan, but for anyone. I recently was invited to an interview. It was actually a hard-hitting interview. I was actually surprised. And the woman asked me point blank, she said, Tom, do you think international education should be regulated? Should it be a profession that's regulated? And yeah, my answer was basically it's so diverse. If she was coming at it from the perspective of government regulation, I said, look, it'd be impossible. You'd have to involve the Department of Labor, Department of Education, and others people. I mean, there's no one entity under which all of international education, all this moving parts could fit. At least that's how I answered it. I'd like to know what you all think. How would you answer that question? Anyone want to go first?
I'm happy to try.
Okay.
So my first answer is I think it is regulated, not officially by the US government, but certainly by the parameters of what we're kind of told to do, the concepts, deep focus right now, obviously, on employability, on pragmatic outcomes, on competitiveness and national security, that spans the political spectrum. So it's not exclusive to the current administration. It was something that the Obama administration was very big on as well. So I think it de facto, you were talking about the mythology. I think it de facto is kind of regulated. But there was a big attempt, and this is something we talk about in the course. There was a big attempt in the 1960s to regulate it through the International Education Act that Lyndon Johnson tried to put through. That was never funded. It was never put through entirely, and there was too much political division at the time, to actually make it regulated. But there was an attempt, and some of the effects that we're dealing with now have come from the aftermath of that failure to fund the International Education Act of 1966. So there was an attempt to regulate it. I personally think it should not be, because international education, the beauty of international education is that it is a citizenry diplomacy effort, and it really comes ideally from the grassroots, and it's global in nature. So the intercultural aspects, you can't regulate that unless, you kind of go to more of a world government type of overall situation. So I think it's better as a private endeavor.
Very good. Amara, what do you think? Can you add anything to that?
I think I agree. No regulation. I think going back to the idea of the course and things, thinking about professionals in the field, all kind of starting with some framework or foundation, might help a little bit with everyone kind of working toward the same goal. I mean, we certainly all think we are, but I'm not sure that really is happening right now. So in that way, I guess maybe I wouldn't use the word regulated, but kind of seeing if people could start from the same place a little bit more.
I think this goes back to what Brian's saying about the foundations for international education. I remember years ago, I was part of an assessment team for a program provider in Italy, and we went there. And part of the other people that I was with, one was a farmer. She was from the School of Agriculture, someone from the School of Pharmacy. And so, yes, we had similarities in titles, but not necessarily similarities in professional experience within the field. So we had no connection, no commonality, and that wasn't an issue really, because some of the questions they asked and some of the questions I asked were really coming from left field and right field. So what you both said, it makes sense. Just need to have that commonality. I mean, we have such a diverse workforce in our field, but the point of origin is really is different. And I think this foundation, the foundation for international education, really can unify it. It's the thread that weaves it all together, I think, so to speak. Because I have seen that with people from different professions that enter international education, and it's different. They just don't have any connection. I think so. I think there's certainly room for improvement there. So again, Bryan, thank you for your work on this. From my end, I'm all done. Does anyone else have any other questions? Or if not, Bryan, do you have any final thoughts?
No, this is just wonderful. Thank you so much. I just love talking about the field and love meeting new people who are kind of considering, different career paths. And yeah, thank you, Tom. This is great.
Well, thank you again, Bryan, and thank you, Amara. Naomi, thank you, and thank you for our other guests. Your name is too long for me to pronounce, but thank you for participating, and we will have this recording available shortly. Okay, thank you.